Right. So if everybody's fine with that, you can just accept that you're okay with the meeting being recorded. But while Anne-Marie is looking at putting the agenda on the screen for us, I just want to say thank you very much to all of you. I know that it is quite a busy time, and the current circumstances is making it more difficult to do your work, and then also to get involved with something like this. So thank you so much for being willing to do this. We obviously want to make sure that we have an interesting and relevant program for this year's conference. This is now going to be the first time we will have the conference in a virtual format. So it is going to be a learning curve as we go along. So thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if you wanted to, at this point, just say something, but then after that, you will see I have a couple of things I want to brief you on, and then we will get into the actual abstract review and how we will go about the selection. We will then have to discuss our further meetings around this. Okay, there's nothing else. Yes.
Sorry, Naomi, I just saw Neil's hand was raised.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see the screen.
No problem.
Neil, yes, please.
Thanks, Naomi. Afternoon,
Yeah.
colleagues. Can I just confirm that we've got the same documents? My agenda is the 5th of August. The one on the screen is the 10th of August. Is that just a date change now?
Gosh, I must confess that I did work with, perhaps I shared the wrong one with you guys.
So, no, Naomi, what you attached was the conference meeting of the 5th of August, and then the conference program committee meeting. So I've just put the second attachment on Neil. So yes. I think the first one probably is the entire conference, and this one probably is more towards the program committee. I would imagine.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So apologies if
no
I attached the
right
wrong one initially. You've got the right one in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay. It should be program committee for 10th of August. You'll see on the agenda I have the conference program, and just a few items under that where I mainly wanted to also brief you guys on where we are at from an organizing point of view in terms of the whole program. I also have shared the program outline. Anne-Marie, did I attach the correct one? It's the one that you sent me just now, and which I haven't actually had a look at either. So we will put it up on the screen shortly.
Yeah, I think that's the one you sent.
Okay, and then of course, item number 3 is actually where we have to look at the actual abstracts, the review of it, and the selection. And I do think this is probably going to take more than one meeting to get to the end result. I will explain to you what I did. I tried to look at what everybody added to the portal so that we can come to some sort of agreement or comparison as to how we see all the various abstracts. Yeah. So we'll start with the conference program. And Anne-Marie, you can then also share that outline for me. I basically want to just confirm, obviously, that in terms of the oral abstracts, you know that we closed that, and those are the abstracts that we were reviewing. We are currently, today is the deadline for the lightning talks or posters, and those we will have to review at a next meeting. Neil, did you want to add something? I saw that. Is your hand still up from the last time? Neil?
Sorry, colleagues, old hand. I'll put it down.
Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything at this point you wanted to add to the agenda that you see a glaring omission.
Nothing from my side.
All right. So what we have on the screen right now is a draft of the program layout. So you can see the spread over the 3 days. Thank you, Anna-Marie. What I can confirm is that we have had confirmation of our Master of Ceremonies. So there will be a Master of Ceremonies that will be managing the conference overall by making sure that all the sessions run, that everybody is introduced, or that the program runs as it should. We've had Bushle, oh gosh, Anna-Marie, her surname now.
Mbambatatu.
Mbambatatu, that's correct. She has agreed to act as the Master of Ceremonies for the conference. So on day 1, we will have, of course, an opening session as per the usual. This program follows very much the typical traditional format of the LIASA conferences. So day 1, the morning will be devoted to an opening session where we will have the usual welcomes, opening remarks. We still have not confirmed our keynote or guest speaker, as we hopefully will have the Minister of the department to do the keynote and the actual opening. Then there are a couple of sessions over the 3 days that will be devoted to business of LIASA or very specific themes and topics that has been identified as important. So in terms of the abstracts we received, we basically will have session 3 and 4 on day 1 and day 2, where we will be able to slot in those talks. So those are fairly limited spaces. So in terms of the abstracts we've received, we probably will only be able to accept about 50% of those. My understanding is that this program is still fairly fluid, and depending on what we have and how many of our papers we think is worthwhile of adding to the program, we can look at if there's some more space to include them on the program. So the idea would be that we would today at least get an understanding of how many papers we have that are acceptable. If we will be able to prioritize them or rate them or weight them in terms of preference. And then on Thursday afternoon, I have a meeting again with the whole organizing committee where I can then report on this and perhaps get a better sense of whether we will be able to accept more than those, or whether we will have to be much more circumspect in how we select those papers.
Naomi, could I come in?
Yes, please.
Could we have an indication of how much space is in the lightning talks and the other formats that are not taken up yet in the conference, and the possibility of giving authors who have submitted abstracts the option to change the format from a research to a lightning talk, for instance?
Yeah, my calculations are that, look, the orals, we give them 15 minutes. 15 minutes is the total time which includes questions and a little discussion time. So each of those sessions, we have 90 minutes, which means that we can slot in, what is it, 15, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is it 6 papers in a session. I know by my previous calculations, I came to about 12 orals, and then there would be space for some lightning talks. Sorry, that was Anne-Marie?
No, it was enough. I was just sort of also, I was just checking your calculations. I mean, in 1 hour, you will have to be, you can do 4 papers. In other words, 50 minutes each, 15 by 4 is 60. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So if you have 19 minutes, then it will be 6 papers.
Yeah, a total of 18 abstracts.
Yeah.
For 3 days.
Yeah. The lightning talks or posters, the idea around that is, and Anne-Marie can also come in here, is that those talks will be pre-recorded, as well as, of course, the posters themselves. These will then be available and displayed in a special poster space on the software. So the delegates will be able to look at those and view the various posters, listen to the talks throughout the 3 days. And then we need to look at whether there will be space in each session, or whether we're going to have one dedicated session where we will then have some of the authors being able to take questions on their posters. So yes, to answer that question, that is exactly my thought, that perhaps some of the papers or the abstracts that have been submitted, we can actually then ask them if they would convert it to a lightning talk, just to give more people the opportunity to participate.
Okay.
So far, we have actually only received 1 abstract for a lightning talk. And I saw an email pop in. Somebody sent me an email with another one. So at this point, submitted, there were only 2. So I think we do have space for a few of those. And we need to look at how we can we can put them into the various sessions.
Sorry, Naomi, could I come in?
Neil, please, yes.
So the lightning talks will be pre-recorded. And
yes.
Do you say it will be a synchronous interaction with the authors during the conference, or asynchronous? Will it be the delegates viewing the paper and then being able to interact with the author?
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. We will allow for some space for if the audience has questions around the posters, so that there's a live discussion around the posters. The time will be very limited, but yes, we are going to do that.
So the slots in the conference for the lightning talks are for the delegates to actually go and view the materials.
Yes.
The posters.
Yes.
And listen to the lightning talks.
That's correct. That's correct.
Will that be monitored? Will there be some sort of stats to say that so many people have viewed this resource?
Correct. That's correct. We spoke at our previous conference organizing a meeting to the organizers who's handling the technical side and the platform, and they said that was possible. And what we would do, and that's also why we want to offer prizes. That's also why we want to offer a prize for a delegate voted poster, which will encourage people to do just that. So when they go and view, it will be recorded, that information, and those people would then actually be in line for the prize. So we can, during the day, we can remind people to go to the posters. So little
because my current suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
current suggestion is that a lot of time is being allocated to lightning posters and not much to the research papers. So that session 4 there could maybe be a combination, or the abstracts that are still acceptable but do not have space in the conference.
Yes, yes. I would like to see that in each of those sessions, we have a couple of oral presentations of the normal, let's say, research or conversational papers, and then we allow for 1 or 2 or so or more lightning talks in that same session. Because remember, one of the things we need to do is to look at how we can group the various talks, including the posters, together in a particular kind of a topic, overall theme, so that we've got a coherent theme running for, let's say, session 3, and a coherent theme running for session 3 on the next day. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Thanks, Naomi.
Okay. Remember also, all of the presentations will be pre-recorded, and only the question and answer sessions are live. So each of these presenters will pre-record their papers, whether it's a normal talk, the 15-minute talk, or the shorter lightning talk. There will be a chairman for each session, and at the end of all the presentations, there will be, let's say, 15 minutes or so. So remember, in that 90-minute slot, we've got to allow for the questions and answers as well. That would then be live, and people would be able to interact with all the speakers. So it will be quite a fine management of the time. And of course, in the virtual space, you really need to be very careful that this is handled very well. Are there any other questions around that?
Not from my side for the moment.
No, I'm fine, Naomi. It just seems like the pre-recordings will lose the social dynamic of the conference. But I suppose the interaction at the end will be that.
I think I mean, it might be that you lose something, but at the same time, it is more manageable because you have control that everything will fit in your time slot and that you will not have major technological challenges.
Yeah.
But then people will have to be available for their questions and answers and so on.
Correct. So that is also one of the other things that we have to keep in mind, and that it already in the call for papers, it was stated that all presenters have to be registered and present for their talk. So the fact that it is pre-recorded does not mean that they don't have to be there. They actually have to be in their session and be available. Neil?
Sorry, I think that was Leforse.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, colleagues. Yes.
Hello.
So that means that we will have control over time. Like when people are preparing the presentations prior to the conference, then we'll be able to know that this one can take this number of minutes and allocate time accordingly. Am I right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
it is
thanks.
quite important to do that. You know, in a live face-to-face conference, time management is an issue always. And it's even more so, more critical in a virtual conference environment. So
yeah, my
yes.
worry is the same worry I have with my students in these virtual meetings and events, is that the engagement is not there. In the pre-recordings, I mean, I could be making coffee next door, and I don't know, it's just, yeah, but I think a conference, the delegates are all wanting to be there, and they're motivated to be there, so I don't think it's the same context. So yeah, time management, I agree, it's 100%.
Unfortunately, that is the case. And we hope that we can go back to a more sociable kind of environment in the near future. We will probably have to see what will happen next year, whether one might be able to then look at a hybrid type event where some people can be on site and the others can join virtually. So yeah, indeed, it becomes very, very difficult, but I do think that the people who actually attend and listen and participate are people who really are interested and engaged. We've had the virtual Indaba, when was this? Late last year, and we had a fair number of people attend, and there was a fair participation in the question and answer session. So it's not the same, but it is the best I think we can do at this point.
Supported. Thanks, Naomi.
Okay. Thank you, Anna-Marie. I think we can look at the agenda again. I think there were one or two other items that I just wanted to touch on before we actually get onto the actual abstracts. So we spoke about the layout and the speaker slots. Point number 2 under B is the session chairs. So each of the sessions will have a chair that will then manage the question and answer sessions. My understanding is also that this time around, the platform software that we are using, it's a very nice 3D platform that it will be easier to manage that. In the previous Indaba, there were 2 types of software that people, we sort of had to move out of the one into the other to do the question and answers. This time it should be much smoother. So with regard to that, once we've put together the sessions, the idea would be that we identify people to chair the session that has some expertise in that particular area, so that these people are comfortable with the speaker's topics and can then manage the session without getting lost, that they can actually stimulate the discussion. So on that, we will do that sort of later on, once we've got the program together or the draft together. And I would like to ask you, all the members of the program committee, to let me know whether you might be interested or available to act as session chairs. So keep that in mind. I have mentioned the conference MC. And then the last one there is, of course, just there will be a conference opening video and some entertainment, which has traditionally been how the conferences have been opened. And the executive, together with the organizing committee and the PCO, are currently working at putting together a nice video that is relatable to the theme, plus then a live entertainment piece as well to set the scene for the conference. Okay, if there are no other questions around all of that, then we get to point number 3. Thanks, Neil. We'll make a note of that. The abstract review and selection. And there are 3 items here that I think we need to look at this afternoon. The first is to obviously look at all the abstracts, and we will have to put some kind of weighting to the abstracts because of the limitations in terms of the number that we can accept. So I'd like us to discuss the criteria and the weighting so that we agree on that. Then based on that, we will be able to say, okay, these ones we can select. We would like to have them on the program. Perhaps these certain ones are the B selection if the first ones don't accept. Because once we decide this abstract is suitable, we will communicate with that author and they have to come back and confirm, yes, thank you, I accept, I will present with all the conditions attached to it. And if for some reason some people fall out, then we do have others that we can slot in. And then part of this first section is the feedback to the authors. So some of them will hopefully be outright acceptance, and then there might be quite a few based on the abstract quality that we want to say, please rewrite your abstract, make these corrections, give us this clarity, and then we will consider to put it on the program. So those are the 3 steps that we need to look at. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is the sooner we now can get back to authors, the better, because they have to prepare their talks and they have to pre-record their presentation and their talk, which will be handled by the PCO. And this has to be done, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Anna-Marie, it's more or less the 16th of September.
Round about there, that's correct, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So basically there's about 4-5 weeks. So we urgently need to get back to them so that they can actually work on the talks and that the recordings can happen. We also plan to have a session, a recorded session for the chairs of sessions. We did have some stumbling blocks around that, both technical, especially technical and otherwise. And we need to make sure that everybody is comfortable with handling the technical side of things. Although there's good support from the conference company, the PCO. All right, if there's no questions, further questions, can we get to the weighting and the criteria? I have sent to you, yes.
One question. Will there be publications from the conference or no full papers?
Neil, the thinking is that if we have good enough papers, that we can select some of them and there will be a special issue of Sageless, of the academic journal of LIASA. Separate proceedings, no, we are not going to manage that. We are going to look at doing that next year, but for this year, there will be a special edition of Sageless and we can then have selected. This special edition will be on the conference papers, so they will be published in that.
So do we keep that in mind?
Accredited journal.
Do we keep that in mind when we select the abstracts and make authors aware of that so that they can prepare for that, or is that a separate issue?
Yes, I think we should at this stage keep that in mind and flag the possible papers that we would like to see there. So that, yes, we will obviously keep to the journal's publication and processes and the time frame. I would think that such a special edition of Sageless, and Anna-Marie, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, would only be published early in the new year. Right?
Yes, I would imagine so. If we follow the proper procedure of having it peer reviewed, then it would probably be January or so, yes.
Yeah. So that, as you know, would be a peer review process.
So no, I mean, that's why I asked. Obviously, the conference does have the ability to double blind peer review once the abstracts have been selected. So if you talk to the journal, it could be a combination and we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but I'm not sure what their criteria is.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. We will, of course, be involved in that selection of those papers and making sure that they are submitted to the journal. Okay, perhaps I would like to give you guys an opportunity to also just say something. I think it has come out with the comments that I've seen that you've made, and you know, I have actually had an email chat with Ina at some point around the quality of the abstracts. And this is a concern I've been raising over the past number of years that I've been involved with the LIASA conferences, is that overall the quality of the abstracts seem to be quite poor. And we've identified the need to have a series of webinars to to train people on how to write a good abstract, and perhaps to start this process so early that we could make this a practice. We do the webinar, and we actually have people write the abstracts for the next conference according to that, so that we can improve the quality of abstract writing and reduce the need for us to ask people to resubmit or rewrite. I don't know from your experience of other conferences whether this is a problem that you find in our profession, or if this is unique to LIASA. We do, of course, have a lot of practitioners rather than academics, but all round the abstract quality seems quite poor, and we might have to ask quite a few people to do a bit of rewriting. So perhaps if you have any feedback at this point.
Thanks, Naomi. If I could come in.
Yes, please.
I think it's probably a similar approach which we use in our own departmental conference, where we use it as a formative exercise for anyone who's submitted materials, is that we try take that material and let them formatively develop it into a better quality, should I say. It can't always be fixed if the methods are wrong, but a better quality paper. So I think the ones that we do choose today, we take that same approach, and we work with the authors and assign them mentors if needed, just to assist them so that the conference quality is not compromised.
Sounds good. Anything from you, Ina, before say?
Nothing from my, I was off for a bit, but I will fit in, so I'm fine.
Okay. Leforse?
Nothing from me. I'm fine. I'm happy with how things are going now.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So perhaps, Anna-Marie, we need to try and look at the spreadsheets that I've also shared. I actually found that it seemed a bit more complicated than I had thought initially. But let's see if we can get a sense of how we agree on the various abstracts and sort the abstracts accordingly. We can look at it, and then we can discuss the criteria. I was thinking that we should use a scale of, let's say, 1 to 5. And I'd like you to come in with suggestions. If you have more simple suggestions of how to do this, I would welcome that. But a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 would be a definite first choice, these papers we want on the program. Then 4 being a second choice. I've got 3 as rewrites. A 2 perhaps not suitable or very weak, and a 1 being outright rejection. So I don't know how that sounds. And then, of course, there's a couple of criteria that we could use to get to that point. Anything from anybody else? Ina?
It sounds okay for me.
Okay. Neil, Leforse?
Can we not do this on the website that we reviewed the abstracts on?
Yes, there is an option for waiting. I saw.
So that we all on the same platform and we can put the scores in and it should calculate itself, should it?
Yes, it seems as if it would calculate the total weighting. So I'm not exactly sure how we would do that. I would have to ask the PCO to make that available to us, those fields, so that we can actually do the weighting. I am not
so
aware.
It's not
that
available at the moment.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, no problem. No, we
Yeah.
continue with the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it is a bit very labor intensive this way, but let's see how far we can get, at least with some agreement on, let's say these ones are accepted. And then we could have a second meeting where we look at how we're going to deal with the rest.
Sorry,
yeah.
I don't seem to have the spreadsheet. Did you include it in the same email?
Yeah, I thought so.
Email?
No, I thought I included it in the same one, but it could be that I was in too much of a hurry. Let me see if I can open it and share it.
Please.
Let's see.
Yeah, the spreadsheet we've got is just the conference layout and the conference fees.
Okay, yeah, I was in a bit of a hurry and I ran a bit late. Let's see. Where do I need to go? Anna-Marie, you can perhaps lead me in terms of where I go to share my screen. Okay, sure. Share screen, I see.
That's right. Select your document and then just click share again. Or on the pop-up, just click share again.
Okay, let's see if this works.
There we go. Something's happening. Okay. There we go.
All right.
You can see it, yes.
Yeah, so what I've done is I've got the list of titles. I have the various reviewers. What I've done is I've marked all the ones that we've accepted in green, the ones that were rejected in red, and the orange or yellow for resubmission or rewrites. So can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Naomi, could I just clarify something quickly?
Yes, please do.
In the review process, we were not told how many, were we told how many abstracts could be in the conference?
I did share an email a couple of weeks ago where I said that we would have between about 12 and 15 papers on the program.
Okay.
And that is what we
No, I apologize. That's an oversight from my side. I was not sure whether I thought there would be space for all of them. So my yes for all of them was under that impression. So I have not filtered out the ones. So please, I'll do that today in the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's come to an agreement or conclusion as we discuss whether it would be when would it be the most productive to spend our time together versus what we can do on our own. Not to waste anybody's time and to give us a decent time to actually make the correct selections. So I really would appreciate all your feedback in terms of how you would like to tackle it, what makes sense for you, and of course the time that you have available. So you need to, of course, tell me whether this makes sense. I extracted data from this database, from the portal. I'm also not 100% familiar with this particular portal yet. So these are the lists that is available to me. I have hidden a lot of the fields because there's a lot of fields that become visible when I extract the data. So I've tried in the best way that I could think at this stage to, just to get a sort of a sense of where are we with the various abstracts. So please let me know if that makes any sense to you.
I also have to apologize. I actually did not really understand the portal, and what I did was I thought that I only received about 3 or 4 abstracts, and I only reviewed those ones. It was only later when I got an email that I need to do as many as I can, that I try to do as many. I'm not done with all of them, but I've done the majority of those abstracts.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I've seen that because I've got access to the back end and I can see all of your reviews and your notes. So yeah, I sort of noted that. Let me ask you this before we go any further. Perhaps we went about this, not the right way at this point. I mean, Neil, you've already said, for instance, that you didn't have everything in mind when you actually reviewed the papers. And I think, even Lefosse also didn't have an opportunity to look at all of them because he didn't quite understand the process. Whether we need to establish some guidelines or some criteria for ourselves right now and do the work offline to make it easier, and then to get together with something more sort of sensible and not time wasting for all of us.
Yeah, I would, Naomi, go back to my original suggestion then and say that you enable the functionality of the website. We decide today how many papers we accept, and with that in mind, we go back to the portal and rate the papers according to what we feel we have space for. Yeah. And the quality of the paper, obviously.
Yeah, it will certainly make it easier.
According to what you said in the beginning, where you wanted a variety of themes, maybe we find all the good papers in one theme. So we also need to understand, we need to maybe separate these papers into the sessions as a draft, and then go back and select the best papers in that session. So I'm not sure we could approach it in those 2 ways.
Yeah, correct. The other thing, in terms of just very practical comparisons and so on, for instance, there's a lot of submissions from the University of the Free State. Although they are very different, etc., but there are quite a few. So we would have to obviously be fair as well. I mean, one of the things, because of the limited space, to keep in mind is that we cannot accept more than 1 paper by the same author. So when we have more than 1 paper and there are 1 or 2 or 3, then we have to choose the best one for the program. We can't have more than 1. Then, of course, we need to look at things like we can't have only speakers from the University of the Free State. We need to make some sort of judgment call that there is a diverse spread of people speaking from the different organizations, etc. So I don't know if you agree with me, but I think there are a couple of things that one has to keep in mind when putting together a draft program.
I support that.
Okay, so that, okay, thank you. And then
supported.
Thank you, Lefosse. And then, of course, I think these are things that would be very familiar, would be things that obviously we need to look at the papers relate to the theme or the topic of the conference. We would need to look at whether this is original work, new research or new findings that will be of value. you know, asking also what is the value of this paper to and to whom. And in many instances, obviously have some outcomes as to what the research actually presents to the profession and to the delegates of the conference. So, so it sounds to me as if we've got a little bit of homework to do, then we can all go back, sort these abstracts accordingly, and then get to a shared selection and a draft program. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
So okay. So the first thing I will do is I will get a hold of the PCO and discuss this on whether this is doable on the platform directly, so that we can do the weighting, and it would make it much easier. I will communicate that with you. I will also then communicate with you what we've discussed now in terms of the rating or weighting, and we can make sure that we're on the same page in terms of the criteria that we will use. And then we give ourselves a couple of days to do this, and then we have a subsequent meeting. Can we proceed like that?
Yes.
Okay, Ina, thank you. Neil,
Yes.
is that acceptable?
That's acceptable. Thanks, Naomi.
And Leforsi from your side
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That sounds good to me.
And Naomi,
Then-
possibly,
Yes.
I think the website does have the theme
Yes.
embedded. So I think that functionality is already built in. It's just the matter of understanding how many orals within that theme you want, and then choosing the best ones.
Yeah. The authors were able to select a topic or a theme. We would then obviously be able to, when we look at the abstract, because I think there were actually one or two that were not really suitable to the theme. But even though the author selected a particular topic or theme, it is also, we can then also say, no, we want to slot it into a different subtopic once we've looked at the actual abstract. But yeah, some of that information is built into the data that we have.
What could really help us before the last selection would be for you to draw that data into a spreadsheet like this, and so that we can preliminarily see how many papers are in how many themes.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure whether we have that functionality on the website as users.
Yeah, we I
So
mean, from the data,
filtered the information here, but if you could add that field of the theme in that spreadsheet, I think that would be useful to us.
yes, the theme actually appears. I have just hidden it in this current spreadsheet.
Okay, great.
So it could be made visible to, to share. You will see there is a column for every reviewer with a percentage weighting, and then there's a total weighting at the bottom end. So there is the functionality. I need to just see where online we can add that so that we can come to a calculation.
Yeah, all I'm asking is for you just to do that prior to us reviewing again, so that when we're reviewing the paper, we're knowing we've got the stats in front of us.
Yeah. All right. We'll do that. I will also make sure that you have it in time to have a look at it before we have the discussion. I would assume that we will not meet until, say, early next week. what today's Tuesday. So we should be able to have the data or the platform so that you can access it. Then I can extract and combine the data, share it with you. So yeah, you will have to, I will communicate with you, you will have to communicate with me in terms of your availability, your ability to do this last round of review online. Okay.
I think as soon as the functionality is available, we can as reviewers push for it to be ready by next week for our meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's from my side. I'm not sure from colleagues.
No, I'm comfortable with that.
Can you do that? Okay, Ina, thank you. Leforse, will you also be able to do that in the next, let's say, about a week? As soon as I've given you the go ahead and say, okay, you can do this, then we give ourselves a couple of days, about a week. We'll have to push the deadlines a little bit. We have limited time.
That sounds doable. I think that we can do.
All right. All right, colleagues, is there anything else you want to add at this point that I need to know, that we need to keep in mind before we log off? Anything, Anne-Marie, let's start with you. Do you have anything to add at this point that I might have left out?
No, not at this stage, Naomi, thanks.
All right, Ina?
No, I'm fine with this, thank you.
All right, Neil?
No, I'm good, thanks, Naomi.
Leforse?
I'm also fine for now. We will see once the portal is available to us.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining and for helping us getting this process properly going and making sure that we've got a good quality standard of our conference. So I will be in communication with you and we'll set up our next meeting, let's say in approximately 1 week.
Thanks, Naomi, and well done to you and Liasa for this. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting and good conference.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Thank you for that, Naomi. I agree with Neil.
Good, yes.
Thank you very much, Naomi. But you know, I don't know whether this one belongs here or it's something that we can talk about at a later stage. But what I did was, when I was given the Librarian of the Year title in 2019, I have made a saving of about 5,000. Is it 5,000, Anna-Marie, or was it less? Maybe it's less now. Now I've made in a budget of, I think it was 5,000 or 3,000, or just, I think it's 5,000, where I was suggesting that maybe we need to invite students from universities, especially those students that are doing masters and also PhD, just as another way of trying to bring back the element of postgraduate studies for librarians and also research for librarians in the picture. So I was just thinking, is it something that we can put in now, or should we just put it aside and then we'll do it for next year while we have time?
In fact, we had from the conference organizing side, we actually picked up on the whole student participation in the LIASA conference. It was a point of discussion that we would want to look at including students, again, encouraging students. So it's actually quite a valid point that we considered. So one of the things was that's why I asked that you encourage the students to participate through the lightning talks, because we would certainly like to have the students involved. And
could I come in here?
Yeah, just in a moment. I just think that this is is definitely a very, very valid suggestion, and that we can talk around how to how to address this at this stage. So Neil, yes, please.
Sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
Yeah, as LIS schools, we've actually put a proposal to LIASA in terms of a student chapter, and adding within that membership of the student chapter, obviously reduced or zero conference fees. I know Nikki is a very busy person, but can I ask Anna Marie just to follow up on that proposal and give us some feedback, at least before the conference, so that we can go to our students with something concrete. And that's what we were actually waiting for as LIS schools. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly is something that, we could even for the conference program put on the agenda and speak to the executive about that and see how we can actually make this happen. And then, of course, Anna-Marie, you can feedback in terms of the suggestion of the chapter and the membership. I mean, as you know, colleagues, LIASA is currently looking at, changing perhaps the model of how LIASA works, etc. So it is quite an opportune time to also bring the student participation again to the forefront. Anna-Marie, I don't know if you have anything to share.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. I will follow up with Nikki as well. I don't know if you got the letter about the special fees we have for students for the conference. So it is very much reduced from the normal fees. If you can stop sharing, then I'll quickly find the fees.
Sure.
That I can just display that.
Yeah, it is certainly something that as the
300
conference
per student, and then there's some group reductions for more than one student. I see it in the spreadsheet tab on the emails. Well, the spreadsheet that we got.
Okay. So yes.
For 10 students, it's 2,500. That's 250. For 20 students.
That's right.
5,
yes.
000.
That's right. So, so that would then be this top one would be for students that are perhaps not affiliated or library schools that do not want to participate. And then we have the special registrations. So some of the students, if you find there are worthy students that can't afford such a reduced fee, or if the library school can't afford it, there will also be a few grants available for attendance. So that would also come out in the next few days. So look out for those as well. Strangely enough, we struggle every year to allocate all the grants that are available. People just don't apply. So be on the lookout for those as well.
Can I just ask something? Sorry, Neil?
No, carry on, Ina.
Okay, I just want to ask in terms of defining student, are you talking about undergraduate students who are then studying either full-time or part-time? Or are you talking about honor students or master students or doctoral students? The reason why I've asked this is with some international conferences, we've learned that there's special fees for students, and then somebody who's having a senior post in a library with a good salary then applies for that because they are a master's or a doctoral student. Whereas an undergraduate is somebody, I mean, who mostly do not have a job or something like that. So I just want to ask if that has been clarified, or does it not matter?
No, it definitely is mostly for undergraduate students. So I think in our constitution, a student is also defined as somebody that does not have a permanent income. So yes, you do get your doctoral student without a current income, but as you say, mostly the master's and doctor students, they do have a job at this stage. So we focus on the undergraduate, those without a permanent income.
I'm perfectly happy with that. And even the level of study is not so important for me as the fact that whether somebody have a permanent income or not, because otherwise, as I said, in this case, the fees are much more manageable and people are not getting provided with refreshments and so on. But otherwise, it means that somebody pays next to nothing and then they want to still benefit from the refreshments and everything.
Exactly.
And conference bags and taking up a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an, I think, important distinction to be sure what we talk about in terms of these fees and how to accommodate the students that are not working. However, you know, we also as LIASA and I'm sure as the LA schools need to look at how do we introduce the students to the professional body and the way that they can develop and even find jobs by interacting with the profession at large at an event. So I think
I agree with that. Thanks.
Yeah, my suggestion,
students. Yeah, Neil?
Sorry, Naomi. My suggestion would be to use the conference as a membership drive and say within that 300 Rand, you get a year's free membership. So you're getting the students involved in LIASA and you also then exposing them to the conference. Now, I'm battling with our own conference to understand how do we budget for a virtual conference. Yes, there are expenses like the portal review websites and the dissemination of the conference and stuff like that. Have you been able to put a budget together where you can see whether you'll be in the black or the red, or how much you need from delegates to actually cover your costs?
Yes, so Neil, what we've done, or what our PCO Scatterlings did for us, based on the attendee number from last year, they worked out, they actually suggested a much higher fee of just 1,000 Rand for members, but they have worked out a break-even budget for us. So we do believe that if we get more than, I think last year we had about 250 delegates, we would break even. So yes, it is much cheaper, but it's also much more difficult to actually get attendees with a virtual conference.
Okay, thanks, Anna Maria. And can you share that with us as a program committee, or is it
the budget?
Yeah.
No, definitely I can do that. I will email it to you.
You know, in this day and age where we're dealing with open educational resources and the drive to make information available to everyone, to exclude people based on a registration fee and to exclude the information that's disseminated, I think is yes, we do need to cover our costs, but we also need to get as many people involved as possible and participating as possible.
Neil, I can just also, if you're interested, sort of offline, we can arrange different session, share my experience with organizing the virtual ISEC, Information Seeking and Context, which was an international conference last year. We had to turn from physical to virtual. And again, as I said, I'm happy to experience or to share my experience with that in terms of keeping costs very low and opening opportunities for sponsored attendance by students from elsewhere in the country and so forth. And again, as I said, we use Zoom as our platform and it didn't cost much more than I already have. And we use EasyChair as our conference platform, and that is available for free. So, but we can do that offline if you're interested.
Thanks so much, Ina. I really appreciate that. And maybe LIASA could consider it maybe in the future to, instead of outsourcing the actual portals, to look at open source options.
As I said, EasyChair has been used by many international bodies for their conferences, and it was very manageable. And as I said, there is a paid for version, but most of the international, I'm talking about larger bodies like I think, yeah, sort of they used the free version, and we managed very well. And overall we used the university's platform then for the registrations, and we had, I think, more than 170 delegates, and we used sponsorships from 2 local companies, sort of where we had the money then in terms of paying keynote speakers and so forth. But for that, we allowed people from South African universities, elsewhere in Africa too, and also from Uruguay to attend free, that then could bring each 5 students and so, and they gave so much exposure to the companies. I mean, every second comment that they made is sort of, wow, I'm this person's student sponsored by company. So the companies got very good advertisement, I think.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to approach it.
Yeah, now this is actually a very useful, discussion in terms of the conferencing and even for LIASA. And, I can't speak really for, at this stage, how LIASA is handling the virtual conferencing. But of course, we all have to adjust to a new normal, and it might have to happen if this is a more permanent situation where we have to do virtual events. One obviously would have to look at the budgets and see how best we can make it as open and accessible as possible. So all these sort of conversations are very useful to take note of.
There's just one other thing, if I may say this in case I forget later. At the start of our meeting today, it was mentioned that if you have pre-recorded sessions, I mean, you lose that live component. What I found with the ISIC conference, sort of, we were using Zoom, and as person who led this, sort of, I had my video on all the time, okay? And we asked the speakers to have their, in other words, it's pre-recorded, but the speaker would then also put their video on, so their face is visible. And what was interesting then, some of the other people on and off also put their videos on. But what I would really recommend for people is, not everybody, but if you put your video on, people can see you are actually there. In other words, say, for example, Neil's video is on, they can see he's there, he's interested, okay? In other words, some people from South Africa, because this was highly international conference, some people from Africa showed that they are there, they ask questions, okay? And there was one person specifically, I'm not going to mention any names, but just by the questions and so on, people got to know the person internationally, okay? So that made it more alive, so that we had very positive feedback afterwards of saying, but this was a human component. You felt there was something, at least some interest and people seeing, and not everybody needs to put on their videos, but just a comment.
Yeah, that's very real, and the fact that many of our students are sitting in areas with very poor network access, where the bandwidths don't allow for multimedia interactions, that becomes real for us. So yes, the digital divide is real, and when we look at these conferences, we really need to support that part of the membership that might not be able to attend because of access issues to that we're experiencing now trying to teach our students. So yeah, ICTs are great when you have them, but when you don't have them, life becomes very difficult.
Yeah, it actually has in many ways showed again how big the divide is actually, and it is a very fine line where you don't then become exclusive again, because the technical side is excluding people from participating as much as they need to.
Yeah, and judging participation on, resources, but not knowing that the resources aren't there. So,
yes. Yes.
Big picture.
Yeah. No, I think this is also very useful feedback for the LIASA executive to keep in mind, that it does not become an exclusive club, that can only participate. It's certainly not easy. Okay. Colleagues, thank you so much for that.
But I think that recording the conference and making it available is an option to asynchronous
yes.
Communication could work for those people who couldn't join synchronously.
Yes, yes. And Annemarie can confirm this. All the presentations for the conference, everything will be uploaded to the LIASA website and made available offline in print, well, in a manner of speaking, to anyone who accesses the site, right? It's not only membership, is it, Annemarie, or is it only to members?
So after the conference, the portal is open for us. I think it's a month. I'm not 100% sure. I think it is a month. So anybody that paid, but say, for instance, you couldn't attend the session, you needed to teach a class or something, you will be able to go back and view that session. So the portal will be open and anybody can at any time go and view it. Afterwards, since it was a paid conference, we don't make everything just available because it's not fair to those that paid, that everything now is available for free to the rest of them, because then nobody would attend. So it will be available. If you can prove, or if we have seen a payment, then obviously we can share the recording of that session with you, and maybe at a fee. We haven't done that yet. Maybe at a fee, a smaller fee, we can make certain sessions available. There will be sessions that will be freely available, for instance, opening and closing and AGM and that type of sessions that would be freely available without anybody paying. But unfortunately, we can't make the entire conference afterwards just available to those that have not paid.
Yeah, that's of course the dilemma.
Sorry, could I request, Annemarie, that you propose that if, for instance, LIS schools get sponsors after the conference, that we could pay for our students to access the content, but the registration or the payment of that would be after the conference, not prior to the conference. Could that work?
Neil, I don't. So you're talking about the recordings?
Yeah. So if we wanted our
the live
students
conference
to access recordings, like Leforce said, he wanted to, for instance, sponsor 5,000 for 20 students to attend. But the payment wouldn't be the payment if we went and found sponsors for our students who could not attend. And they were saying, yes, we can, and we pay for the recordings. Would that be acceptable?
Of course, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that could work very nicely if I'm, because I'm sure you guys can even use it in your teaching environment then, if you have the recordings, to add that as enrichment for the students.
Yeah, no, we definitely, that will work very well, Neil. Not a problem.
Thanks, Annemarie. Thanks, Naomi.
Okay. The other thing that you mentioned about, and maybe we can just quickly talk about it. You said that every year you have a problem where there are sponsors and you have less people applying for those grants. The biggest challenge that I've had, and also with us at the University, when we had good students, and especially postgraduate students that we want them to go to the conference, the call for the grant will always be saying only public librarians. And I think it's something that LIASA need to look at it, to just say librarians, because there are a lot of unemployed librarians that are sitting at home. There are librarians that are working for other NGOs that are not really public librarians, but they're also serving communities, but they're actually not working in public library. But that's something that I just wanted you guys to think about next time when you check out the grant.
Okay, and Leforce, the reason why we do that is the grants are sponsored by the Department of Arts and Culture, or Sports, Arts and Culture these days, and they look after the public libraries in the country. So what we usually say is that public librarians will get preference. That's right. So so Arts and Culture is happy as long as at least 51% of the grants allocated goes to the public library sector, because that is the sector, you know, obviously they also have to go and account for what they did with the money and how it benefited the sector. But, you know, there's still another 49% that we can allocate if we don't get enough applications from the public library sector. So unfortunately, it always will say that the public library sector will get preference, but you know the secret now, apply anyway. The worst that can happen is your application can be denied. So tell your students to apply. Doesn't matter if it says public libraries will get preference.
Yeah, that's I mean, a good idea. It obviously is often sponsor dependent, because sponsors usually have conditions attached to the money. So yeah, I mean, and it's not always that easy to find other sponsors. Sometimes there are your more commercial sponsors that would consider providing some sponsorship, and perhaps that is also something to pursue. I'm not sure, Anna-Marie, whether you have added that to the sponsorship package that is offered with the scientific conferences at Itemba Labs. That was something that we added to the sponsorship packages, so that a company could say, I want to sponsor so many students from South Africa or from the continent or whatever. And that actually was fairly popular. So perhaps if we haven't done that, something the IASA should consider.
Absolutely. I think currently it only says, do you want to sponsor a delegate? But I think perhaps we can, since we have the Arts and Culture grant, we can make it very specific of sponsoring a student. And of course, it is a reduced fee, which we hope they will then take up more than at the 1,000 Rand fee. So I will add that to our list, and hopefully we can get a few dedicated sponsorships for students. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. And then the
is technology,
obviously to communicate that aggressively to the library school. Can you hear me? I see my internet connection says unstable for
yeah, you did break up there for a second or two.
Okay, yeah. I actually can't remember what I was saying. But yeah, it basically,
was about
I was saying that we should then, if we do get a commercial sponsor that is prepared to give sponsorship for students specifically, that we make sure that we market it to the library schools specifically, so that they are aware of it and can encourage their students.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, please include that in the student chapter proposal.
I'll do that.
All right, colleagues, thank you so much. I think we've actually covered a few other very important things around the way that we do the conferencing. And thank you so much for your input. It's really very valuable. And sometimes a different perspective can raise some things that we are not necessarily aware of and that we need to be aware of. So thanks for all the good ideas.
Thank you.
Thanks for involving us,
Anna-Marie.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
We're very pleased about that, and we appreciate the inputs. The sort of connection between the library schools and the profession is certainly something that we have to strengthen and work together. So I think on that note, I'm going to just say once again, thank you so much. We will be in communication and we will tackle the rest of this in the next week or so. Yeah, Have a lovely evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
colleagues.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Keep safe.
Bye.
You too. Bye.